This is the Celtic Exchange Weekly. This is Tino, and this week I'm joined by Paddy, James and Miff for our first weekly show of 2023 as we continue to cover all things Celtic. Lads, a happy new year to you and happy new year to all of our listeners. Let's kick things off with your moment of the week in Celtic. Miff, I'll come to you first. What have you got?
My moment of the week. Tino, hello, folks. How are we?
Hello, Miff.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everyone. My moment of the week would be Dyson Maida's goal against Hibs / Ange's reaction to it, considering what had went on before. It was just class, and I think it probably just sums up Maeda and how he's viewed by the fans. He's becoming beloved for even more reasons now, based on events of the past week. But it just seems like a right wee character, and I think you saw for Ange's reaction. Normally he's not overly emotional or demonstrative, other than, you know, giving it the big one when Celtic scored, but you could see he just had the right chuckle himself. I just thought it was class, and I just think that the enigma that is Maeda was just summed up with that first 15-20 minutes Easter Road.
I think Ange's seen it all before, hasn't he? You know, he's basically had this for a year or so prior when he had him at Yokohama Marinos, and I think he just knows that Diaz Maeda's got these moments of brilliance and moments of madness in him.
Oh, he really does. Even just watching him yesterday, just this, he seems a very quiet individual. Maeda seems very reserved, and what I loved about even after yesterday's goal with the celebration, the full team were over, and it's when he gets his wee chance to walk away himself. I don't know if you've seen the unique angle today for the goals, but it just gives a wee salute to the fans, and the fans go nuts at it. Just that, and that bond he's starting to create with the fans is great to see as well. We're all starting to see why Ange loves him so much, and long may it continue, and I think he can only get better as well, which is great.
I bet he's great on a night out, but he's a dark horse, but he's up to all sorts. James, what about you? What's been your moment of the week?
Celebrating a celebration as well for me, but Aaron Mooy, I think, like Maeda, he's come back to World Cup full of confidence. I think we talked about in a couple of post-matches, probably post-match Hibs. So the way he celebrated his goal first goal for Celtic against Hibs, it was kind of a bit of relief as much as joy and everything else, you know. So it's great to see, you know, anyone who's pulling on a Celtic jersey, I want to see do well, and it was just, I was delighted to see that for him.
And just on that then, have you come full circle on Aaron Mooy?
No.
Where are you on it?
He's still too slow for me.
So should he not play?
He's playing well, he's playing with confidence, he should be playing while he's got that confidence, but I think long term he's not a solution for me in an Ange team. No, I'm changing my mind and sticking to my guns at the same time.
Yep. Some would say you've been a bit stubborn there, James. Not me, but some would say that.
Maybe you.
Finally, Paddy, what's been the highlight for you?
I just came back again to yesterday, just at the end of the game, the celebrations with Cameron Carter-Vickers, who had a stormer yesterday, unreal, and alongside him Alistair Johnson, who, you know, you're coming into a baptism of fire at Ibrox, your first game, you've not kicked the ball in a few weeks as well, and I just, you know, he slotted right in there for me. He get the reading of the game very, very quickly, and yeah, just the reaction of them. And I don't always like seeing people celebrating draws, but I think there's a lot more that what they've went and done yesterday. There's a lot more to come out about that. The news, obviously we're hearing about flu within the camp, and just what they came through yesterday, the decision as well for the penalty. They knew they were up against it. I just thought they'd done really, really well. Yeah,
it was a big call to throw Johnson in, but he didn't let anyone down, did he?
Well, as it sounds, it seems as if it might have been his only fully ready right back as well. So it is a big call, but this is why you come and play for Celtic, so you need to be ready.
Yeah, good shout. Okay, so let's take a look at what's coming up on this week's show. First off, we'll be reviewing yesterday's Glasgow Derby and covering all the major talking points from an interesting 90 minutes at Ibrox. Then, as an extension of that, we'll take a closer look at the ongoing farce that is VAR in Scottish football, not just from the Derby game, but also in how it's been applied in general since its introduction in Scottish football. And finally, we'll then pick out something which we think you'll enjoy from this week in Celtic media. Okay, so let's get started by covering all the big talking points from that 2-each draw at Ibrox on Monday. Miff, to get the ball rolling, let's have a look at the starting lineup. So, of the big calls that he had to make, I thought Ange was going to go for Juranovic at right back, Mooy in the midfield, and Jota on the wing. I got all of them wrong. What do you think?
I seen you were subject to a wee bit of derision on in the old tweet box yesterday there.
Not for the first time.
Sorry about that.
But I that was just for jump. No, to be honest, I felt, and you know this because I messaged you when I saw the team, if there's any lessons to be learned for history, it's you don't play James Forrest at Ibrox. That said, he could have come off the part in the first half and created a couple of goals for cutbacks that we never really took advantage of. So, and I do think he offered a bit of defensive protection as well. I thought he worked reasonably hard. Don't shake your head.
Disagree.
Don't shake your head, Jim.
A shocker.
But overall, there was also misplaced passes and the stuff you usually see from, you know, almost a bit fragile in possession, not like he normally is, where he's direct and he chooses the right option quite a lot of the time. He normally chooses. So for me, that's a lesson learned for history, is that you just don't play. Not solely Forrest, but I think there's obviously been reasons as to why certain members haven't featured in the game. Probably most notably Jota, because he's been struggling with some sort of bug and he's not been over it. So basically, I thought he picked the wrong team. I also would have had Mooy in instead of Riley.
Just to stay on the Forest thing for a minute, 'cause I'm keen to hear yourself, Paddy and James, on that one.
No, don't give him a chance.
Right, so you've said that the lesson is don't play James Forrest at Ibrox. We have seen over the years James Forrest has been phenomenal for Celtic. We know all too well about his 100 goals, 100 assists, brilliant stuff, but he's always struggled at Ibrox, regardless of, you know, what versed the Rangers over the various years. And it was no different yesterday. It seemed like a typical James Forrest at Ibrox performance, and this isn't to pick him out as an individual, but it didn't go well, and Ange had other options available to him. What do you think it is with James Forrest at Ibrox? Is that a mindset, a characteristic? Because listen, he's our most experienced player. He's been there longer than anyone else. He's seen it all and done it all at Celtic, but he still seems to get a wee bit spooked at Ibrox.
Mindset is James Forrest's biggest obstacle his whole career. If James Forrest was a player breaking through now, there'd be a lot more support and psychology going into his game, and I think we would see a lot more than we have, and we've seen plenty from him, by the way. His record speaks for itself, but I think he's always played within himself. I've always thought there's an extra level in James Forrest that we never got to see, and the mentality, the kind of, not a mental weakness, but there's just something in his head at Ibrox that gets him. He's the most experienced Glasgow Derby player on the pitch yesterday, and he's the one that's really not stepping up. You know, McGregor's behind him a wee bit, but in terms of appearances, Forrest should be the one that's going, I've done this plenty of time, lads, follow me. And it wasn't that way. I think it was the wrong pick. Now, to Paddy's point, we can talk about wrong picks, but not if we don't have the information about who's actually fit. So if Abada's coming off the back of a virus, then Forrest is the pick. So it's hard to give Ange a hard time on that. Time will tell in the end what comes out, but he didn't have a good game. I thought that gives more credit to Johnson, because he wasn't getting the help. You know, he was making a lot of good runs, having to do a lot of extra defending. Maeda and Taylor on the left were having a good partnership. Johnson wasn't getting that from Forrest. Yeah.
What's your own thoughts, Paddy? So I know you're a big fan of James Forrest. Your take on that, and also the decision not to play Mooy in the midfield?
I think definitely on the Forrest one, I could agree that it was a bit of a head scratcher when we seen he was on the starting 11. For me, I think the front three deserve just a little bit of more understanding as how the game actually flowed. Maeda done really well in protecting Taylor, and I think that they wanted to try and get a lot down the right, as much as they want to with Kent on the left, but they see Tavernier as the main man for it coming down to assists and stuff like that. But I actually think we've done very well in keeping him quiet, and that was just down to the hard work from the two on the left. Going over to the right, one thing Forrest tries to do, and he does it, he's done it his full career, is he waits and waits and waits while the ball was kind of scrambling about in the middle of the park, just to be ready to make that run in behind. And it was such a scrappy game in the middle of the park yesterday. I thought, even looking at the state of that park yesterday as well, I think, not using this as an excuse in any way, it was choppy, the ball was bobbling on it, and the ball was not sitting down in the middle at all yesterday. So I give the front three the benefit of the doubt for the transition of play yesterday. I really do. I agree with James. I thought there were some points in the first 10 minutes he was really tucking in with Johnson, but I don't think that happened for the remainder of the half. And it takes one bad touch in a game like that and your head's down. But I generally think that, it seems as if he's had to play, not that we wanted to go with Forrest. I think he's had to play. So yeah,
he's been on form.
Mm-hmm. He has.
It wasn't a wild choice, because when he's come on the last few games, he's played well.
Yeah.
So, but I do think it was forced.
Well, you would rather Abada or Jota in a game like that.
The one that comes in at the back post, Abada scores that.
Well, you look against, definitely you're up against Barisic.
Yeah.
He's torn him apart. But I think everyone would have thought as well, Forest could easily do this as well.
Should do.
I mean, there was lots of speculation pre-match about who would play at right back, would Mooy play over O'Reilly, but there was never a suggestion from anybody I spoke to or seen online about James Forrest getting the nod.
No, and I suppose the way I looked at it at the start, without thinking too much about any bugs going through the camp or anything like that, a bit of experience, you can see, we are a new team under Ange, so the stuff that's been in the past is in the past. I think you've mentioned that before, James, about when you talk about 1-to-1 records or records against clubs and things like that, you can just put all that in the bin and say, no, this is Ange's team record, now, and it's Ange's record. And so for that point, has Forrest started at Ibrox for Ange? Maybe once, maybe at the start of last season, or did he? But in any case, that's what he saw fit to pick a team. He's wanted a bit of experience. Fine, that's fine by me. I just think in hindsight, it's not many times we would have said this, but you look at it and you go, maybe he's just started with the wrong team. Now, there may be additional reasons as to why that team's been put out there. That's fine, but I think the key point for me, and I've seen some wild takes on it. The key thing for me is we've found ourselves in a home, we've dug ourselves out again. It's just a recurring theme.
That's true, and that's the bigger picture look at it. But just, I suppose, to finish off this section, James, is it fair for us or anybody simply to suggest, and obviously we've got the benefit of hindsight, but just as Miff says, did Ange just get it wrong? And if so, that's fine, that's what happens in football.
I think we were talking about it yesterday. So if we're working on the assumption there's no virus, right, because that's the information we have, but we suspect there might have been, then I think it's fine to say, yeah, you got it wrong. I was more than happy to say it in St Mirren, and I think Ange knew he'd made too many changes there. I think you've got to have played Mooy yesterday, both in terms of O'Reilly being off form and Mooy being bang on form, and you've got to play Abada because he loves roasting Barisic. So even on those two, if everyone's fit in that kind of conundrum, then those are wrong picks. So, but he's got so much credit in the bank, Ange, he's allowed to make a wee slip in again.
Yeah, and as Paddy said, it's the bigger picture. It's what we managed to do in terms of battling hard to pull the draw out the bag and everything the players showed in terms of that. And also the players that didn't start, he's brought them on at the right times and they've had such an impact, and we'll get to that just shortly. In terms of the game overall, so obviously Celtic take the lead after just 5 minutes. It's Dice and Maeda converting after being assisted first of all by Morelos and then Tavernier. They've made a complete mess of that, which is nice. That was incredibly the 13th time in 20 league games that Celtic have scored inside the first 15 minutes, and we've spoken about it several times now. That doesn't happen by chance. That can happen on a few occasions by chance. It's clearly part of the approach, and it's how we set out to come out the traps, fast and furious. And in terms of Maeda, Paddy, he was just very, very sharp in anticipating that pass, and he's tucked it away really well, hasn't he? Well,
this is kind of what we're going back to saying. He seems to be just getting more confident as each game goes on, and just how switched they all were. From a throw-in, from a Barisic throw-in, they wanted that ball, and that's what I loved about it, is actually throughout the game, any 50-50, we were taking them, we were winning it. And I have to say, I've criticised O'Reilly on this show. A few criticised him yesterday. I actually thought his ball retention and getting the ball back as soon as possible was brilliant yesterday. I thought he was really, really good at it. And I would actually, we talk about Mooy being more defensively minded and seeing games out. O'Reilly's a better defender than him, in my opinion. And just the way we're talking about Forrest maybe not coming back and supporting Johnson so much. It was O'Reilly, it was out in the right wing, causing Lundstrom all the issues with the ball.
Yeah, pressing him.
Pressing him. Yeah, it was choppy, like I say. The ball wasn't wanting to sit, wasn't wanting to roll, and that played into our favour for this goal, because they just wanted to get it away from that area because it wasn't calm, because we were in their faces, and that all comes from Matt O'Reilly yesterday for that first goal.
Yeah, fair enough, and credit where it's due, because I know you have got your mixed thoughts on him, Paddy, so fair points. James, just in terms of Dice and Maeda, do you think he's been our best player since returning from the World Cup?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's the man in form. You saw how on his toes he was. He was waiting for Morelos to make a mistake there. He was already away. He was a yard away on his run. It was actually a poor first touch, and Tavernier says, "Sorry mate, were you going through and goal there? Off you pop." And he just goes past Goldson. Goldson thinks about it and he just can't touch him or he's away. Yeah, brilliant.
Miffy's clearly a confidence player, but at the moment his confidence is sky high.
Yes, it is, and it's great to see, but that's what a goal and some recognition at a World Cup will do for you. We've seen that before with players maybe just having a good 3 or 4 games at the World Cup and getting big money moves. So the fact that, as far as we're concerned, doesn't appear to be any danger of us losing them, but it's actually translated into confidence rather than a big money move, and it's just us that's reaping the benefits of that. who would have thought the Qatar World Cup would have been so well received? Let's get another year in the calendar, lads. He took his goal brilliantly well early in the game. The way we started the game was excellent. I thought the first 15-20 minutes we made Rangers look very, very ordinary, to the point where it was a bit of a toxic, poisonous atmosphere. Rangers were 20-30 yards off us at times when we were playing through them. No problem at all. And then there was just a couple of things that happened that I think swung the momentum. But just to finish off in Maeda's goal, agreed, Riley's pressing. I think the whole team had kind of cornered them. And they tried to play out, and they're just not that type of team. They can't play like that. They are an agricultural team. I know they think they're a better football team than us. When I speak to Rangers fans, they truly believe. But to me, and nobody epitomises it more than Sakala, they're hustle bustle. Mm-hmm. It's direct, balls over the top. Knock the ball and run. That's their style of football. There's no really a pattern of play. So I think when we dominated the first 20-25 minutes, I think we made them look really bad without us having that really ruthless cutting edge that we've normally got.
And on that very point, so as you say, off to a great start, the goals in 5 minutes, 15-20 minutes, absolutely controlling the game. And the next question for you lads is where did it all start to go wrong? I'm going to read out a quote from Ange first of all. So he says, "We started really well and then we just lost control, mainly self-inflicted because of our passing. We made mistakes in areas of our passing that we don't usually do, and it allowed them into it, and they got a bit of momentum, particularly with the crowd behind them." You've mentioned a couple of moments, Smith. I suppose it's pretty obvious, but I would pinpoint the Joe Hart moment around about 27 minutes, I think.
I would like to defend that.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second. So Joe Hart's moment around about 27 minutes, because it definitely gave them a huge lift. And the other moment, of course, was Greg Taylor going off, which was just before that. I think around about 21 minutes Greg Taylor goes off. So I'll come to you first then, James. What about that Joe Hart moment?
To Rangers' credit, they started to press us about that 20-25 minutes, and they started to press us better when we were coming out from the back. And Starfelt in particular got caught under a couple of times, to kind of panic back to Joe Hart and then off to Carter Vickers and whatever. See if Joe Hart ever finds himself in a position where he hasn't got an option and it's a decent ball, he's just going to clear it. The ball for the one you're talking about that he ends up spilling out, it's actually a foul from Morelos if we want to be strict about it, but
I don't think so.
It's a pushing the goalie with no attempt at the ball. It's not a shoulder charge.
I don't think so.
So anyway, that's not the defensive part. It's a poor ball from Starfelt back to the goalie, so Hart has to come across to get it. By the time he gets there, he goes, "I've got no options and I don't have a decent option of clearing this." What he should really be doing then is putting out for a throw in maybe, but where's my defenders? We know we play out from the back, so I should have an option here, and I should have McGregor right in front of me, and none were there, so that's where he panics. So I think the defence in the midfield have got to be better shown for the goalie there, because we know we play like that. If the goalie's under pressure, the options aren't there.
They could have helped him out, but surely you've got to shell it when you realise you don't have those options.
I think that, but it's drilled hard into them that shelling it is your absolute last option. So where are my options?
I think the last option was pretty obvious that it was there though. Before I don't agree with that. I think that's going back to the Leipzig game where he kind of just shrugged and said, "What's the way the manager wants me to play? If I play a snide pass, I play a snide pass. Fine." At that particular moment in time, I think it was pretty obvious to everybody he had to empty it, and especially a guy his experience. I think that's the difference. It's not like he's naive, but I do. At one point, I would concede that as Rangers did press very well at that moment, which caused a mistake for Starfelt. But Starfelt is somebody else I felt was really below par. Yesterday started the game reasonably well, but then gets sucked in. I think between him and Juranovic, it just that created a bit of weakness down the left side, and Starfelt on the ball was particularly poor yesterday. But that particular moment, I just think Hart should be putting his laces through early doors.
Aye.
I'll come to you, Paddy, because when Miff was mentioning Starfelt, a couple of things, I've seen a grimace come across your face.
He is the man who cannot be criticised, apparently.
Nah, I wouldn't say that, Miff. I wouldn't say that. He came on to a lot of criticism after his first 90 minutes at the club, if you think about that. I just think he's an easy target. We've got Cameron Carter-Vickers, who does not do anything wrong. He's solid. Starfelt was playing alongside a guy on the left that didn't want to be there yesterday. I think you've got to remember that. I think he done really, really well. Any ball that was coming into the box, he was there or thereabouts. Him and Carter Vickers done that in April at Ibrox, and they weather the storms very, very well. And actually, from that Joe Hart mistake, Hart makes an incredible save onto the post. Starfelt makes an even better tackle from Sakala's shot.
I'm somewhere in between you two lads, because I think there was moments, particularly in possession, I thought Starfelt was cheap. But there was moments defensively he was huge.
But that cheapness, sorry Tino, that cheapness comes from not having that option on the left.
Yeah.
I thought it started when Taylor was still on. He was finding himself under pressure and panicking a wee bit.
I think part of it with Starfelt's aesthetics, it's how he looks. Like, now, he always looks like he's doing things just as he's falling over, or he looks rushed, or he leaves it late, or he's off balance. He's just aesthetically, when you look at somebody like Vickers, he's like solid. When he's passing the ball, he's always upright and he looks in control all the time. Starfelt doesn't always look like that. So when he does do something wrong, even when he does something right, sometimes he'll be passing the ball, he'll kind of be falling over as he's passing the ball. He's just got a very strange technique. But as always with Starfelt, there's good and bad. See, when it comes to attacking the ball in the box and headers, stuff like that, Starfelt's always there or thereabouts. You get back to the Hibs game, the way he started the Hibs game, first 15-20 minutes when we were under a bit of pressure, he's read the game brilliantly. But he just seems to be, when he's on the ball, he's just got that bit in him. And I take your point about Juranovic. I mean, Juranovic, you saw, we were talking about that before we came in, you saw behind the goals for, I think it's Rangers' first goal, Juranovic is asking Starfelt to come over, Starfelt stays, the two of them have a right ding dong after the ball goes in the net when Kent puts the ball in the net. So clearly there was a bit of niggle between them in terms of what they felt each other should be doing. And I just think both of them had a relatively poor game. That's the way I put it.
Juranovic has to take Starfelt's lead there because he's a left-sided defender, not Juranovic.
I don't think Juranovic has to go where he wants to go.
No,
simple as that.
Whenever Starfelt tells Juranovic to be is where he should be, he should be dictating the play.
Yeah, even more so from the fact that is where Starfelt plays. He's the left centre half, so he knows what should happen in those areas between him and whether it's Taylor, Juranovic or anyone else, Bernabei out there. I suppose the thing for Starfelt, perhaps, given the choice, he would rather play where Carter Vickers plays, being a natural right-sider. And I wonder if this is where Kobayashi will come in. It'll be an interesting question whether Ange starts to tinker with that in the games ahead. We've got some League Cup stuff, some Scottish Cup stuff, and I wonder if we might see Kobayashi. I like Starfelt. I'm a fan. I think he's good. At the moment, he's absolutely a first choice for me. But I think it's fair to say he had a mixed performance at times. Why don't we go to the penalty, Paddy? You were skipping ahead a wee bit, but does he have to go to the ground for that?
No, he doesn't. I was a bit adamant that was kind of the last ditch of what he had to do after, again, Juranovic just said, there's the door, open, on you go. But for me, I've looked back yesterday, and he doesn't have to go to ground. There's no shot on for Sakala. Is it unfortunate the way that the tackle happens? Absolutely. Is it a penalty? Yeah.
Do you get up the other end?
Say again?
Get up the other end?
I'd hope so. As you don't know in this country, I definitely think it's a penalty.
I think it's soft. It's very unfortunate, but I do think it's a penalty. It's that one, but Sakala goes to plant his foot, which happens to be where Starfelt's sliding trailing leg is. It's probably a penalty.
So
Leo Labada goes to shoot at Parkhead, where Ryan Kent's foot happens to be. Did we get the penalty then?
We didn't have VAR.
Still a penalty. It was a stone wall.
Yes, but we didn't have VAR.
You didn't go to VAR? You didn't go to VAR?
For the
Sakala?
Did they know?
No. Anyway, what was your take on him if you were going to say something about that? As a penalty.
It's a penalty, but Juranovic should take a yellow card outside the box.
Aye.
Exactly, and so this brings us kind of very much on Juranovic as a subject in himself. So he comes in 21 minutes for Greg Taylor. There's a lot of suggestion that, why we're not bringing in Bernabei, and it's a fair question, but Juranovic is a World Cup semi-finalist. He should be capable of playing at left back for Celtic, and I think he has done on a number of occasions last season as well. So a lot of folk are pinning that one on Ange, saying, what you doing, what's he thinking? The guy's a quality player and he should have done better. Guys can come in on any given day and have a bad game. That can't always come down to the manager. But what's your take on it, James? He clearly struggled. I mean, for the first goal as well, his positional sense for Sakala was woeful, who eventually gets it to Kent, and then at the penalty as well.
I thought that was it. His positional awareness sense, he just looked uncomfortable from the get-go. And like you said, he's played in that position before. No one likes a right full back at left full back because it is unnatural. You've trained your whole life to do different things, to do it the opposite side. So it is, even though he can do it, no one wants to do it. We need to look into the Bernabei situation, but in terms of Juranovic himself, he gets caught between heavy pressing Tavernier, and then he just leaves Sakala, and Rangers' long ball team, say McGregor just spots him, shells it to him, and then before you know it, Kent's got the ball in a really good position. So that and the fact that he was getting turned inside out for the penalty one when he should have just taken him out and taken the booking. So yeah, and then if you want to add in full mitigation, was he carrying flu virus or whatever kind of thing?
So there's two things that I'll put to you, Miff, at the moment. So yeah, he may have been carrying a bug of sorts, which is fine, but and there's a lot of guesswork there, but there does seem to be something in the fact there was maybe a virus in the camp, so you could protect him there. My other train of thought is that should we be playing a guy, listen, he's not going to be here at the end of January. That's the way it's looking for everybody. We're signing right backs clearly to replace him, to make sure we've got cover. He's getting into that game, full-blooded atmosphere at Ibrox. Does he want to get himself injured and potentially ruin a move to, I don't know who's in from just now, Chelsea, Atletico Madrid, Man U, whatever? You've got a guy there who's possibly going to give you less than 100%, not because he's not a good pro, just because it's in the back of his mind, Miff. Should we have played him at all?
He played like a dice skate zone. I've very rarely seen a player of such calibre, apply themselves so poorly. But were you wearing your heart stopped? It's made me think that Bernabe's performance at Tynecastle, I think, is the reason why he didn't go on the pitch yesterday. He really spooked at Tynecastle, to the point where it was Taylor coming on that actually changed the game for us, if you remember rightly. We were really weak down the left hand side, and he was pretty poor at retaining possession.
2 months ago,
I'm just thinking that he's not had a lot of game time since then. There's been a break. You've got Juranovic on the bench, who has played at left back before, and we've mentioned his experience as well. I think weighing both things up, he's maybe felt that's just the safer option, which in that moment I agreed with. However, in hindsight, you would say it's maybe another call that the manager's got wrong.
There's a question, getting into the second half, you're thinking, should they potentially take Juranovic off again?
I'd have been okay with that.
I thought so.
Yeah, we've got 5 subs.
And don't get me wrong, the ultimate snub for a professional, to be the sub that then gets subbed.
If you weren't going in January, now.
You also try to punt him for a few quid, it would have been a real snub, but it might have been the right call.
It's not even just been this thing, he's maybe going in January, the tools have been downed. You look at the amount of times Ralston's come in and started games before the World Cup. Ange has seen a player that said, I want to protect myself for this Croatia squad, and if I get to move here, I'm going to go as well. And it's been pretty poor from him, very unprofessional.
I think that's an excellent point, that this is the culmination of an attitude shown before the World Cup, that this has all been chartered before the World Cup. Juranovic played like he was in the shop window at the World Cup, but in the context of the Juranovic debate, this is the model in action. A man bought for $2.5 million has shown himself to be far better than that. We've scoured the market, we've got him at the basement rate, we've brought him in, he showed that he's better than the money we paid for him. He's going to get a move to a bigger league, say, not necessarily a bigger team. And then we've bought a young, hungry right back who's also performed well at the World Cup, who to my eyes looks like he's somebody that's going to be an asset, and the main thing is he's happy to be there. We've got somebody in Tony Ralston who's probably going to stay with us certainly for the length of time that Ange is going to be there. He's somebody that's got to be a reliable squad player at the very least under Ange. This is the model in action. We're going to get money in far in excess of what we paid for Juranovic, whilst we've already got a replacement there who's shown that he's up to the job. I mean, I just think nobody's losing out of this.
No, you're right. It's the system in action. The issue isn't anything to do with Juranovic or what we sign him for, what we're going to sell him for. The issue is we may have made a misstep current viewing on the cover for Greg Taylor. Greg Taylor showed how important he is to us yesterday, and we don't have a replacement. So if Juranovic has started yesterday and he went off or he was having a bad game, Johnson's on or Ralston's on when he's fit. We don't have that level of cover on the left. So what are the coaches seen or not seen in Bernabe that they could trust him to go in his left back yesterday, because he was signed as our left back cover?
Agreed. It's one of the ones where we might just have got it wrong. We've paid $3.5 million for this guy and we've seen very little. I understand Greg Taylor's been in great form, but we should possibly have seen just that bit more of him. And maybe Ange just doesn't have the confidence at this moment in time. Listen, he's very early into his Celtic career as well, and he may come good, but at the moment he's not quite hit the ground at the pace he should have.
I think what he's suffered from potentially is Taylor's form just been so good that Taylor's practically been undroppable. So it's been, any times Taylor has dropped out the team, it's been really, really noticeable, to the point where you're almost trying to just keep Taylor playing as often as possible.
Yeah.
I feel a bit sorry for Bernabe, because he probably should have had more game time up to now. It's just really one of these things, just the way the season's worked out. But I still think there's plenty of time for him to do well. I don't worry too much. I just think it was a perfect storm of circumstances yesterday that made Ange think, I'm going for the experience. I think Ange just played it safe. Who's to say somebody like Burnaby coming on maybe took the game up the other end rather than be a bit more defensive. But again, that's all if buts and maybes. I think he's just went for the safe option at the time.
Fair enough. Last point on Juranovic. Around about, 3-4 weeks ago, he's got Vinicius Junior in his back pocket, and yesterday he struggles with Fashion Sakala. I've said it before, I think he's a terrible footballer. He's pacey and he's lively. He's also rank rotten. Did you see some of the shots he had?
Wild.
Just woeful footballer. But he had the run of Juranovic yesterday, and I think that was really poor.
Did you see the wee celebration when he got the penalty while he was holding his knee?
Really?
Rubbing his left shin.
Odd character. But Matthew, you've talked often enough about when a player's ready to go and their head's gone, we should let them go. And I think that's where we find ourselves with Juranovic. He's been a great servant, popular with the fans. He's even got a song, Paddy, but I think it's time to go. And we need to make that move now for his sake and for everybody's sake, because if he's going to turn in performances like that, nobody wins, least of all the player himself.
Just if we're still staying on Juranovic for a brief second, his performances this season, especially in the Champions League, have left a lot of fans, less than impressed. I think there are a division of fans who are quite happy to see him go. Me personally, I liked him. I liked him. I thought if you do get his head right, he's an exceptional player to have, as we've seen at the World Cup. But it comes back to that point again, Tino. Since the 2020 season, I'm very, very passionate about it. If you don't care who it is, Kyogo, Giakoumakis, Juranovic, if you don't want to be there, get them out the door.
Yeah, you're right in putting it in the past tense. I liked him. That's correct.
So cold.
He's class, but you're gone.
He's yesterday's man. Just in terms of the bigger picture of the game then, so obviously we've only covered some first half stuff. We go 1-0 up at half time, or we're 1-0 up at the break, should I say. Morelos has some big chances, couple of big headers that he should probably do better with.
Big.
But then, absolutely big. But within about 8 minutes of the second half, we find ourselves 2-1 down. We've mentioned how poor Juranovic was in the lead up to the equaliser by Ryan Kent. Certainly with the penalty with Sakala getting the run him into the box. And what we'll do, we've covered the penalty a wee bit in terms of the that tackle. Whether it's a penalty or not, you can debate as long as you want, but maybe Starfelt doesn't need to go to ground. But that aside, Miff, at that moment we were under serious pressure, and it's very unlike this Ange side to collapse, if that's not too dramatic a word.
Yes, but I mean, context everything. I thought it was a bit harsh, Paddy calling Starfelt a bomb scare, but I mean, context everything. You're against a team who, this is their last roll of the dice. At the end of the day, we gave them encouragement. That's probably the bit that sticks in everybody's craw the most. We gave them the encouragement, and they know that. But professional players, if there's one game that Rangers team would be motivated for, it's against us at Ibrox. And that's what you saw come out. They just started, kind of fighting a bit harder, pressing us a bit harder, being a bit more direct as well. I think they looked for balls kind of in behind to get his turn down the channels. It's effective football at any level if you've got fast players and skillful players, and somebody like Kent who had an on day yesterday in terms of his work rate. He was all about the park. And then somebody like Sakala who he likes to kick the ball in front of himself and chase it down. And for somebody to have a game like Juranovic had yesterday, he was just, Juranovic's position was just so poor, and even his body shape, everything. Just show him down the line. He's not got a trick to beat. You just show him down the line. But in any case, that's what yielded. Rangers had a good 15-20 minutes. That was all they really had in the game. Either side of half time, a good 15-20 minutes probably. Other than that, I thought they were really agricultural. Any sort of possession and fluid movement came for Celtic, even when they were under the cosh. Come the end of the game, Rangers just had 2 banks of 4 sitting deep in their own half.
Here's a question for you: how many Celtic players versus how many Rangers players were in the box when Kyogo scored?
5 Celtic, 10 Rangers.
Was it?
Is that right?
10 Rangers?
That's interesting in itself. We'll get to the kind of subs and how they change things just shortly as we start to kind of wrap the chat up on yesterday's game. But we've spoken a few times now, there's been mention of this potential bug in the camp, though we've not heard anything official, or I've certainly not heard anything official from Ange or otherwise, and it might explain a fair bit about the game. Now, I don't want to speculate too much on this next character, but I'm a bit concerned about the lack of game time that Jota's getting and why he's spending so much time on the bench. You've either got a bug or not. You're either fit or not. So see if he's on the bench with a temperature or he's feeling nauseous, then he wouldn't be on the bench, right? So I'm saying he's fit to play, but he's now not started Celtic's last 3 games. He's come off the bench and fits and starts over those games, and I think over the piece he's played around about an hour of football. Do you think there's anything more in that? I'll come to you, Paddy, that he's been protected for a move in the same way that Juranovic hasn't been playing much either?
No.
Is there a suggestion that he might be on the...
Nah, he's not going anywhere this season. No chance.
Why so sure?
Why so sure? I just think that, you know, we can have players on the bench if they're not fully fit, because we've got the science there to be able to say, you know what, you might get 30 minutes out of him and it'll be a good level of 30 minutes. Look what he done when he come on. I generally, no, Tino, it would be a wise move to keep him this season.
Of course it would. So I think we're all desperate to keep him. I'm just wondering if there's something more to it.
I just think that Paddy's answered your question there very well. The end part being the most important part is that Ange would think, I assume, a good 15 minutes out of him is
might be all I need.
Is worth having him on the bench for, and proved to be the point. So for as much as we can give Ange stick for other decisions, that was one that I think he did get right. If he's not been able to last half an hour, he seems to have been very deliberate for keeping him to that time. And he's just went on and he's done the business. Yeah,
he started the first game back against Aberdeen. He then starts against Livingston. Then this is where he hits the bench. So in St Johnstone, he came on in the 67th minute. Against Hibs, the 84th minute. So next to nothing. And against Rangers, 77. Now he has an impact in different ways, and he had a huge part to play in that equaliser, and the desire to get into the box when Mooy had tried to get across as well. You know, it's his challenge on Ryan Jack that leads it to spilling. He's a phenomenal player. I want him to beat Celtic for the next 20 years if we can get him, but I'm just wondering if there's something more to it. Why we not see? Tell me this: why do you spend $6 million on Jota and not start him at Ibrox?
Because
I think it's just Paddy's nailed it. He's coming back from an illness, and the stats are saying you're not going to give me 90 minutes. Best I'll get you 15, and I want them to be impactful 15 at the end, not 15 and collapse and go off. There's a lot goes into it. This is Jota's first stable club environment for 4 or 5 years. So is that he's not looking for a move. Now, that's not to say someone hasn't watched Celtic in the Bernabeu and went, right, get some money in that guy and try and put bids in. I think scouts will be looking at Jota and putting bids in. I don't see anything from Jota, the management, his style of play, nothing to suggest that he's looking for a move. I think this is 2 and 2 makes 17. He's just not been well, and now he's getting better.
Has he not been well against St Johnstone and Hibs and Rangers? Is he sitting there with the paracetamol on the bench, just getting the...
No, he may be just not quite fully recovered yet for his lost salts, water, whatever kind of thing. I think this is not one to worry about, Tino.
James, I'm a qualified physician.
Are you about to tell us that he's going to go?
I just really hope not. But
He's just really worried.
I was so puzzled by it, because I actually thought when we were talking pre-match and weighing up who was going to start, was it going to be Abada, was it going to be Jota? The more I thought about it, I convinced myself that Abada's certainly done it against Rangers at Celtic Park, less so at Ibrox, and I just thought, do you know what? Big games call for big players. Time to put Jota back in, and just very surprised to see him being on the bench for 3 games. Here's hoping it's just a slight temperature, James, and he's back for Kilmarnock on Saturday.
Just to you on that one then, right? So look at it from Ange's point of view. Who is the informed player and who do you not want to drop at the moment? It's Maeda.
Of course.
Maeda, and I don't see Jota as influential down the right.
I'd still put him in the right because of that. He's a big game player.
Aye. No, fair enough, but I just think it just... If he's not fully there, then I just think it's been the right call.
Paddy, why are you trying to get Jota a move? What's your problem? Okay, so moving on to the final section in terms of the Glasgow Derby chat. The subs and the impact they made in the game. So after an hour, obviously excluding Taylor going off injured, but after an hour, Celtic bring on Abada and Mooy for Forrest and O'Reilly, and then on 77 minutes it's Jota that we've mentioned and Giakoumakis for Maeda and Tatati. Meanwhile, Rangers are bringing on Ryan Jack, Scott Wright and James Sands. And in short, was this really the difference, Smith, between us getting a point on the day? Are our squad options and the depth that we have, are they just so much stronger than Rangers at this moment in time?
Yes, and I think there was a fairly shambolic contribution for all 3 subs to the cause.
Not our cause, the Rangers subs.
Aye, the cause.
The cause.
Went for are you ready to know ready?
Oh.
But I would say that's of their own making. They have a superiority complex, and it's come back to bite them. They were happy with their business in the summer, but now they're saying that Ross Wilson should be, I think, swinging for the stands. But he's short and curlies was the exact tweet that I read. But you know, they were happy. They'd come off the back of the Europa League final. They thought they'd strengthened, and they thought we had stood still. MD watching that game yesterday, there's only really one football team there, and that's I'm not being, you know, big-headed. You just saw the changes that we made, the way that we. I think almost every sub bar, maybe Abada was involved in the goal or contributed towards the goal.
Abada was there.
Abada was there at the back post, and you know, Johnston and Vickers are in the box as well. I think they're up in the box. It just the desire that the team show, the way that they play. They've got a pattern of play, a style of play. Everybody's well drilled. You know the way Celtic are going to play. It's no coincidence we score so many goals in the last 15 minutes of games. We're relentless, and everybody knows what's coming, but they just can't stop it.
Yeah, there's so much chat on Twitter and stuff from Rangers fans saying that, you know, Michael Beale, the coaching genius that is Michael Beale, just got it so wrong. You know, in 80 minutes we weren't really kind of threatening too much. Mooy had come on, Jota had come on, and they were kind of starting to do something, but at that point that's when they bring on Sands and Wright. And it just seemed like such a negative. You know, you're basically inviting Celtic onto you, and for a team as USAMF who constantly scored in the last 10-15 minutes, that was criminal, and that's potentially their downfall. And as you pointed out, I think, James, Miff, it was the three subs, Jota, Mooy and Giakoumakis, all play a hand in the goal. I was disappointed with Giakoumakis' overall contribution.
Same. But
he's got himself about and he's been a nuisance in the box, and that's when it then spills to Kyogo.
What I loved about the goal more than anything was that it wasn't landing for us at our feet at any point. It just seemed to end up with Ryan Jack. It just seemed to end up just bouncing about the box. We weren't getting anywhere near it, but did they stop? Did at any point they stop to try and get a lot of pressure onto the defender, try to clear it? Not one player stopped. That's what I loved about it. And Mooy's movement, I know it's poor defending from Jack, but it's clever enough to say, I know they're still playing me on here. I'm going to take a wee move to the right.
Clear him 2 yards on.
We know how bad they are. This is the thing. And I just thought it was great determination for the team. Brilliant play from Jota. Brilliant play from him. And just, there's one person that scores that on that part yesterday, and it's Kyogo.
So calm. So, see all that bedlam going on everywhere. There's 3 guys in the line and a goalie, and he just says, there's the spot.
That's it.
Picks it.
Final point as well, and we've not had enough time to cover it here, but huge mention to Carter Vickers, who makes a phenomenal block from Tillman, his countryman, when it was 2-1 to Rangers, and that keeps us in the game, and that gives us a platform to kick on. Listen, we're going to draw a line under the game, but Miff, your final comments on that one?
In the context of the league, a good result, but overall with the way we started the game, disappointed not to have just put the league to bed yesterday. That's how I feel. Created a wee bit more buzz around them and noise, which I just don't think they deserve it. I thought we regarded our performance yesterday as poor overall. I would have said Rangers were the same.
There's a buzz. They're getting a buzz off this, and the media's helping them with that. They didn't win a must-win game. That's it. End of story.
Yeah, and as Miff says, despite being far from our best, the result leaves us in a really solid position. We're 9 points clear and 20 goals to the good.
Tino, we're only 3 points clear. That's not how the league works.
This is correct.
No, how does that change now, though? It's 4 points.
Paddy, the final word to you before we move on from this one.
I just think that it was a very strong show mentally from us yesterday. It's just the character of that team, and they don't know when they're beat. They really don't. And like Jamie says, if that's your strongest team, and you're happy with that performance, then good luck with the rest of the season.
Yeah, exactly. So, as I say, 9 points clear, 20 goals to the good. Next up for Celtic, it's a league game against Kilmarnock, and that's 3 o'clock this Saturday at Celtic Park. So we're moving on to the big topic, and we are going to move away from Monday's game, kind of, to cover that, but there's a tie-in with a couple of the VAR decisions. So my question for you guys today simply is, are Celtic being refereed to a different standard when it comes to how VAR has been applied in Scottish football? James, your initial response?
Not Celtic. Everyone except Rangers has been VAR different standard, and you can see it because the inconsistencies are there. Every team has a VAR complaint, bar one. Every team has VAR gone against them, bar one. So it's not necessarily against Celtic, it's against everyone except Rangers.
Strong words, Miff.
Well, I just go back to the handballs that we've not had given to us versus the ones that we've had against us. I think there seems to be some sort of pseudo changing of the handball rule that
week to week
that went against us. I mean, I've never seen a ref blows quickly. That Ross County handball for O'Reilly when his hand is by his side.
He's outside the box.
It cannot be, and it's outside the box. It cannot be in a more natural position. It's bounced up off the Ross County player's foot onto his arm, and the ref couldn't wait to point to the spot. Instead went to VAR, they've upheld it. The Burnaby one, he's not even looking at the ball.
No.
Albeit that you could argue his hand's out, but his hand's out for jumping for the ball.
That's how you hit a
We've
ball.
not had the Michael Smith one, we've not had the Goldson one. Just come out and tell us come and explain those decisions to us. That is what we need. We need
transparency.
All the officials that have been involved in that to say, right, look, this is why we came to that decision, because without it, whilst there's a deafening silence, we're left to jump to these conclusions.
Yeah, Paddy, in terms of Monday's game alone, it can be summed up in 2 incidents. So obviously we've discussed that in a bit of detail. Rangers penalty on 52 minutes. I do think it's soft, but it's in the category of 50-50. But if it is 50-50, why wasn't it reviewed, on the screen? Why was John Beaton not asked to come to the VAR screen by Willie Collum? Has Willie Collum in the VAR room basically just said it's a definite penalty, 100%, no doubt, stay where you are, John, that's fine. So that's one point. The second one is the Goldson handball on 64 minutes. His hands are in an unnatural position, absolutely. They're up somewhere above his head.
Made his body bigger.
And it blocks the ball's route to goal. How is that not a penalty? In any other league, any other competition where VAR is being applied, that's a penalty. What's different here?
If Goldson's hands are down another 10 centimetres, say, right, both hands, and the shot is hit where it's hit, then I could see the argument. But they are up so high. They are up so high. And I know how close it is. I get it. I get the speed of play is different from a slow motion view. I totally understand. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew. I mean, it's still not even. It's a Carl Starfelt shot. I mean, it's very unlikely that it's probably even on target. But the fact is, it's right in front of everyone, and they have taken the time to review it. It's probably been the quickest review of the season as well, might I add. Probably wasn't even 30 seconds added on for injury time because of it. It baffles me. It baffles me. What do we need to do to get something from this? And when I say get something from this, I mean the rules be applied. What do we need to do for that to happen from a referee in this league?
Yeah.
Struggling.
I mean, Rangers are the only club yet to concede a penalty in the Scottish Premiership this season after 20 games. Is that just a coincidence?
Well, I don't think so, because where there is marginal decisions, they will always get the benefit of the doubt. That's just the way things are. I mean, the one up at Aberdeen, Tavernier's kind of handballed it onto the post. It's as blatant a penalty as you'll ever see.
Sands against Hibs, that's even more blatant.
Sands against Hibs, there's an absolute catalogue. I mean, the worst decision of the season for me is the Ross County player through and goal. With Sands brings him down. There wasn't VAR at that point.
He was on a booking. But
he was on a booking, and the referee literally stood on the halfway line at Ibrox and shrugged his shoulders. Don Robertson stood and just went, What
do you want me to do?
None to see here. That's what I mean about the marginal decisions. Now, if that happens to any other team, based on what I've seen this season at Celtic Park go every week, you're off the park. You're off the park. The penalties we've had given against us, madness. And just the things we haven't had go for us, madness. And it's getting really, really frustrating to the point now where you're waiting before you celebrate a goal when you're at the game and stuff like that. Yeah. I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
Well, just on that, Miff, you've mentioned there's been a catalogue of incidents, and I'm going to read out some here. Right, so VAR has now been in operation for 10 Celtic League games, and including yesterday's 2 major incidents, I'm going to give you 10 very, very questionable decisions in total which have gone against Celtic. I'll just rattle through these quickly. Right, so the Michael Smith handball against Hearts, or for Hearts, on the 22nd of October, that was the very first day that VAR was in play. Abada also scores a late goal in that game at 4-3 to Celtic, and to this day we've yet to see a replay to show us clearly that was offside.
It's like JFK, did it happen or did it not?
Yeah, so that one's just fallen into the ether. Number 3, the penalty given against Burnaby in the Dundee United game that Miff mentions, where he wasn't even looking. That's the 5th of November. Same game, a chest high challenge with the studs on Giakoumakis. Nothing to see here, no red card. We move on. I don't even think a yellow card was given, which is bizarre.
Didn't get a foul.
Yeah.
5th incident, Jota's disallowed goal against Motherwell. The ridiculous camera angle, which I think Miff's Mod took to a tower on a Nokia 3310.
Yep.
And again, nothing to see here. That's 9th of November. Straight leg challenge on Starfelt in the same game, not even reviewed. Could have been a straight red. The Ross County game, The ball is flicked onto Matt O'Reilly's arm, which was in the most natural of natural positions by his side, possibly outside the box as well. Decision, penalty against Celtic. Abada's goal that was disallowed recently against Livingston at Celtic Park, that was the 21st of December, after the defender's error plays him in. Again, no goal Celtic. And the two incidents yesterday, the penalty, for Sakala and the Goldson handball. Listen, there's more than that, but that's the 10 that jump out.
I'd not have the penalty first. That's a penalty.
Right, okay, my fault.
That's a penalty.
I'll just re-spell it and say there's been... I'm trying to get poetic. 10 games, 10 bad decisions. It just doesn't quite work.
It's like Anthony Ralston's goal against Hearts.
That's what we'll do, right? So we'll edit this out, maybe. But I mean, James,
definitely.
Your thoughts on these 9 or 10 incidents in general? And as I say, there are others, but what's your general take on it?
What would anyone say to that? They are all blatantly at least the wrong decisions, or if not, inconsistently applied decisions that only seem to go against us, or that never ever go against Rangers. So are Celtic talking to the SFA behind the scenes? Because we're paying for a service here and we're not getting what we're paying for. So there's got to be work behind the scenes. Talking to a couple of people that might be in the know seem to suggest Celtic have been to the SFA twice so far with this collection of incidents, and they'll be going again based on yesterday. So we'll see.
The irony is Celtic are paying for this service not to their benefit or the benefit of Scottish football, it's to their detriment, and that doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you'd mentioned you lads all go to the games, has this enhanced your experience as a paying fan?
No.
It's useless,
Absolutely
isn't it?
I'm still a fan of VAR. I think VAR applied correctly should be part of the game, but this isn't being applied correctly.
It should be helping the referees, but for what you're seeing, all you've got is people make up as they go along. There is no consistently applied set of rules. Just take those handball incidents alone before you get into anything else. Who's come out and said, right, well, this is why. This is why. This is what we go by.
Yeah.
Because there is no explanation for what we've had against us and not go for us.
I think what we're definitely seeing is the officials on the park are afraid to make a decision. They're just happy to let it go to review and whoever's on the mics. And on that point, Paddy, should we look at introducing this transparent audio feed between the officials in the park and the VAR room that we see in the NFL, we see it in rugby? If there's nothing to hide here, if you're doing the right thing, if you're applying the rules by the letter of the law, let us hear the audio. That would really, really enhance at least the viewing experience, and you would start to get more involved in it. I get how good that would be. It will never happen in this country. Never. Because it just lets everyone know what's going on.
Well, what's going on?
Can't tell you.
That's why nobody's allowed to know.
I just think it would enhance the product. I agree with James. VAR is good technology if applied correctly. I seen somebody tweeting earlier on, a computer's only as good as the information you put in it. You're getting
rubbish in, rubbish out.
Correct. You've got all the stats here, but nothing's working. Final question on the VAR topic. What are or what should be the consequences of officials getting this wrong? So there's been some wrong calls yesterday, I believe, that we've agreed on, certainly with regards to Goldson. There's been a whole catalogue there, 9 according to Miff, 10 according to me.
No, 10 according to James.
But what happens? Are you allowed to just get these wrong and then just go up the road anyway?
So what used to happen on any referee, Steve Conroy, for example, has a bad game, dropped down to the 3rd division or whatever. We don't have the pool because there's more referees required now per game because of VAR. I mean, you've got to sack the whole organisation of Scottish refereeing, start from scratch professionally, and find a sponsor, put the money into it, and train these guys up. See, guys in football that aren't maybe going to make it amateur, junior, professional, whatever, they want to stay in the game. The right recruitment policy, advertising, whatever, you can get guys involved in the game and you can train them up properly without bias, without secrecy, without handshakes and all the rest that goes with it, and bring Scottish football into the 20th century, never mind the 21st. It's got to stop and it's got to be wiped out and start again. It's the only way, with full transparency. And that's it. It's rather than take that kind of punishment approach of demoting them to the lower levels or firing them up to Cove Rangers or whatever. Can you just retrain them better? And if I'd fire them all right, start again. Start again. Well, that does feel quite punitive. But in terms of retraining, can you not say to guys, right, you've got that wrong, but listen, we'll get you back down and we'll show you where you've got it wrong and work on it, because it is new technology to all the referees here. And listen, they're not going to sack them en masse as much as maybe we'd like to see that. It's not going to happen. So can we retrain the existing guys and make them better? I think there is a huge amount of ego in the existing pool of refs. I think you can see that.
arrogance.
They enjoy the spotlight for whatever reason. But I don't think they're the most open-minded bunch whereby that feedback would be welcome.
I totally agree. But you've got to start at Crawford Allen. What is he? He's jumping on Scottish football radio shows on a Kyogo, maybe not offside decision, and then never seen since for all the contentious decisions that go against us. So he's got to go for a start, and then you can maybe start to, bring someone in with an open mind who actually, can improve the game. There's no Scottish referees at any high level of football, World Cup, Euros, whatever, and that's because of our inward mentality.
Yeah, that Crawford Allen stuff really, really annoys me. The fact they came out en masse on all the radio shows going to talk about, it probably wasn't a Kyogo goal. I think it probably was, but that's the debate, and we've not heard from him since. And all the reasons, I've listed a number of them, all those reasons and so much more, we don't hear a peep from him. So does he just come out when it suits the agenda? I don't know.
Crawford Allen sounds like the man for the job.
We could be here all day, but it's a debate that is just going to rumble on. And I actually don't. We talked about the teething problems and how, I think it was Crawford Allen that said it's going to be, or was it Ian Maxwell actually said it's going to be pretty shambolic the first few months, which is a hell of a ringing endorsement for somebody who introduced the technology.
He should have been going for that.
But then he came out and said it's actually been really good as well.
Yeah. This is what it's meant to do. Can I just my last point on it? This isn't a systems problem, it's a people problem.
People problem. Yep, the debate rumbles on, and listen, we're going to revisit this time after
problem.
time because
he's on fire.
What start to the year.
See what you've done there, James. Okay, so moving on. There's no Mystery Celtic this week, but don't worry, that'll be back from next week as we kick that off again for the new year. In the meantime, though, we have a few different items to cover on This Week in Celtic Media. So each week here on the weekly show, one of the team will pick out something of interest that they've either watched, read or listened to that week in the world of Celtic media that they then recommend to our listeners. This week, Paddy, James and Miff all have something for us. So let's get started with Miff first of all. Miff, what have you got?
Yes, brought to you by my sons. You'll be delighted to know it was the best of 2022 unique angle, which the boys always look out for that going on after the games, and we sat and watched through it. I think it was Hogmanay when the boys had seen it, and it was absolutely brilliant. Just so many pivotal moments that you're getting, where we've scored kind of late on in games and the celebrations and things like that. So it's on YouTube. I think I'll send you the link so you can post it. But it's absolutely magic. Yeah. Well worth a wee sit down with a cuppa or something stronger.
Yeah, so it's the unique angle from Celtic TV, the best of 2022. There's some brilliant goals and celebrations in there to enjoy. Have you caught it, Paddy? Have you seen it?
I've not seen that yet, no, but I watched the one for yesterday's. Absolutely brilliant, as I said.
Made this wee celebration.
It's superb.
Yeah, I think it's something.
If you watch that closely, you see Ryan Jack's wee tantrum.
That's even better because I seen it on camera, obviously on the TV, but in the minute you see the unique angles. Oh, it's great.
Ryan Jack?
Ryan Jack, just after we equalise.
He should blow through for a corner and doesn't, and then we scored and he throws a wee tantrum.
Oh, does he?
Aye.
Oh, brilliant. I'll go back and enjoy that.
But the unique angle is something that I think most fans now look out for. It's one of the best things Celtic TV do. It's a really, really good addition, particularly when you have a big win. So it's definitely one to look out for. And as Miff says, we'll post the link here in the show notes. It's just short of 6 minutes long, and it's very, very good viewing. James has got something different to share, and it's a very touching tribute at this time to Frank McGarvey, who's very sadly passed away on New Year's Day after a long battle with illness. Frank was on the park at half time during our game against Hibs on the 15th of October at Celtic Park and spoke afterwards of just what the Celtic support meant to him. James, talk us through what you're sharing.
Yeah, it just is that. I think in that game when we saw him coming on to the park, we knew things weren't good, obviously. He's done an interview with Jerry McCulloch, maybe same day, it certainly came out that week, and he just talks about his experiences at Celtic, and it's an emotional one, and he's very emotional in it as to his love for Celtic and his love for the fans. So Frank McGarvey was, that diving header, 85 Scottish Cup final, that was my first Scottish Cup final. So you'll always have someone like that, really high in your memories of Celtic players. So it was lovely to see, you love guys like that, but it was so nice to see him, the love he had for Celtic and the Celtic fans in particular, and it's just a great wee watch from Jerry McCulloch and Frank McGarvey. Yeah,
I was just going to mention that. So the very goal you spoke about is the phenomenal diving header to win the 1985 Scottish Cup final. I wasn't sure if you were there, so I was going to ask that first of all, and I think that was his last major action for Celtic.
It was, I think, there was just Davey, he wanted to change up. I thought it was actually, because you just always suspect it's a board mess up as things were going on back then. But I think Davey just wanted to try something different. But yeah, I mean, one of very few players to score over 100 goals for Celtic. So he had a very ungainly kind of style, a very unpredictable style, but it was effective.
Yeah, you see the emotion in him. We see when he scores a goal. It reminds me of is it Tardelli that scored for Italy in 1982, 86?
He's got the arms out.
It's just pure joy and emotion when he scores that goal.
That goal is absolutely unbelievable. Aitken's run, and he's struggling to keep the ball in the park. Never mind putting a half decent cross, but then it's actually almost at the 18-yarder going away from the goal. Yeah. It's the most remarkable header you'll ever see. And it goes in off the post. What a goal. It's unreal. To win a Scottish Cup final with a goal, brilliant. Yeah,
it's brilliant to see, and it's a very worthwhile watch, as James says. So it's Frank McGarvey's thanking the Celtic fans for all the support they've given him over the years, but certainly in more recent times. And our thoughts and best wishes are with Frank's family at this sad time. Paddy, to round things off, you've got another interesting clip from the world of Scottish football media for us.
Yeah, this one seems to be doing the rounds quite a lot over the last couple of months. It's another belter for Hugh Keevins, talking about how dismal a performance it is and how things aren't looking great, and then all of a sudden it's the goal flash on Super Scoreboard, and it's absolutely brilliant. So Hugh, keep it up. It seems to be working, mate.
He's been doing it time after time. It's almost like, listen, I think everyone knows Hugh Keevins' background is in Celtic. He's written various books about Celtic players, but he can't wait to sink the boot in, and he's fallen into that shock jock style. I think he's a good journalist, and he's got experience over the years with Steen and Fergie and all that kind of stuff, but he's fallen into that world, hasn't he?
I really like Hugh Keevins. I think he creates that talking point for fans. He gets Celtic and Rangers fans annoyed. I think he knows exactly what he's doing, but whether he knows a goal's already been scored, maybe he's on Bet365 and it's came through before they've seen it or something. I don't know, but it's just brilliant hearing that. I love when that happens.
It's a fun listen, this one, because he's in the middle of chastising Celtic, and I think it's Gordon Dale that pipes up and goes, Jota's looking to make something happen here.
And it's the equaliser.
Yeah, before you know it. But as mentioned, we'll link to that one and all the clips in today's show notes. We don't really have time to cover much else, but it should be noted that Celtic have added a further signing in the shape of Tomoki Iwata. He's joined Alistair Johnston and Yuki Kobayashi as our third January signing and Celtic's sixth Japanese player overall under Ange. Does anybody know anything about him?
Nope.
He was the J-League's Player of the Year last year. He came from Ange's old club at Yokohama Marinos, so he must have something about him, and it'll be exciting to see him and Kobayashi get their first start, Smith.
Absolutely. It just goes... It's such a strange feeling for us to be continually strengthening and looking at players and covering positions. The Abelgard one's interesting because he's still been on the bench, even though there's a lot of chat about he's been terminated. So that was
because of Turnbull needed the cover.
Just with Turnbull being suspended, so that'll be him. Yeah, but no, listen, all for it. It would just be interesting to see him getting into the team. I think because it's just a shame for Ideguchi that you would assume he's going to leave now with the signings that we've made, but just a shame we never really seen the best of him, because he was equally as heralded as Hitati and Maeda when he signed.
I thought more so. Guys in the know said he's the guy.
So it's just been really unfortunate, and it just shows what can happen and how lucky we've been with other players that were brought in, that they've settled in so well. So yep, just fingers crossed they get settled, they get lots of game time, and we see the best of them.
Yeah, it's exciting to see these new additions, and I think even by this time next week when we're doing the show, there's every chance there'll be more movement in and out. So we'll keep a very close eye on that. James, 2023 is now well underway. What's your thoughts and hopes for the new year under Ange?
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Picking James Forrest at Ibrox.
Do not do that again. I don't think that will ever happen again. No, I mean the guys have come back in great form, after the World Cup break, and particularly the two games before Ibrox, they were really starting to hit that form. So back to Kilmarnock on Saturday, you can't take anything for granted, but they should be going on, getting a few goals, see a bit more of Johnson, maybe see a bit of Kobayashi as well, and should we be seeing what Bernabe can do at left back.
Yeah, be interesting to see if he gets a bit more game time. Paddy, likewise, what's your targets for Ange and the team between now and the end of the season? Yeah,
I agree with Jamie there. I just think they'll just keep going with what we're doing, and nothing really worried me about that performance yesterday. I just think it was one of those, we've got the point, it's been a poor performance, but we just move on from it. Nothing's really stood out and made me think that there's a little chance elsewhere for them. I don't see that at all. Great result yesterday, and just to continue for the remainder of the season, I still think that we'll continue to gain more points away from that 9-point lead just now. Just on that one as well, just a quick shout out to the happy couple for last week, if you don't mind, Tino. So for Alan and Megan Thornton, cheers for a great wedding last Wednesday, a great day, especially when the goals were coming in at Easter Road as well.
Cheers for the invite, Alan and Megan. I think that was a Paddy special. But,
it was,
no, best of wishes to the happy couple. My final word goes to you this week, so give us some of your inspiring words of wisdom to take us into the new year.
Well, I think it started well. You know, just the main mission was not to get beaten. We didn't. We dug ourselves out a hole, which I think's to our credit. The team just continually find ways of making us proud. You need to remember the goal difference as well. It's in effect an extra point. We're in such a strong position. Really, for me, it's just about the intriguing parts of the new signings. But will they actually strengthen the first team? If they do, then it's going to be a tremendous end to the season. Hopefully they do. I'm just excited. It just continually feels really, the way that we're doing our business, it continually feels really fresh, and it's just such a great time to be a Celtic fan just now.
You can't get comfy as an Ange player, because there's always change going on, and look at the impact the guys had last January. So if these guys can do half of that, we'll be doing well.
Yeah, very good point. So that wraps things up for the first episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly of 2023. Thanks to Paddy, James and Miff, and as always, our thanks to you for listening. Don't forget to visit our new website at thecelticexchange.com, where you can view all of our podcasts and blog articles and can take part in our special end-of-year quiz as we sign off on 2022. You'll also find details there of our Celtic Exchange Plus subscription offer as we get set for another busy run of fixtures in the weeks ahead. But in the meantime, from myself and the team, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again this time next week.